one is Paul Mayers, who is going to talk to you about mental health, which is very important for all of us that, during these times where we all stress. And if you're my boss, you probably need two Pauls. It's already stress. So Paul's going to talk about mental health in the workplace. So please give it up to Paul Mayers.
Thanks. I don't know. Do you have one? Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks also, Lars, and everybody at NFQ for inviting me. Really appreciate it. This is my third summit and the first one I'm speaking at, so I'm really happy to be here. What I want to talk about today is founder mental health. And how many of you are founders? Can I see like a show of hands? A bunch, a lot. Good. So then maybe this can be helpful to you. This talk came about as the result of a good friend of mine who is an investor in my company. I invested in some of his companies. I'd known him for 7 or 8 years. Out of the blue, I got the news that he took his own life. Okay, it was a real shock. It was a shock to me. It was a shock to kind of everybody. And I thought really long and hard about this, like what we all go through as founders, right? And don't talk about, especially if you're a guy. It's a lot harder to talk about those things to your family or to your friends or your peers or your investors. So I just want to walk through some things today that we can all do by ourselves and with our peers to maybe help that, and so that we don't end up in that really, really dark place, okay? So a little bit about me. I've lived in Asia 30 years, and I've done a lot of different kinds of things, but I've started 6 companies. I've had 3 exits. 1 was a NASDAQ listing, 2 were trade sales. I helped start MTVAsia.com. I worked at the Asian Development Bank. I think I'm the only person in the world who's done both MTV and ADB. I like to think so. I ran Murudi, which is Telstra's accelerator program. That's where I met Lars. And then now I work as a coach, founder coach, and I also help. I work with a lot of the other accelerator programs around the region. A lot of the usual suspects like 500 and Techstars and Seedstars, et cetera. So now I'm working with regional founders, generally post-Series A, and I help them scale and get successful, but also work on a lot of the internal kinds of things. Because while you can raise money, and we all know this, while you can raise money, we can all scale and build a company, not too many people talk about what's going on inside. And that's really what I want to address. And I find it's super satisfying and it's super good for me when I find that I can help somebody like you or other founders, work through their problems, work to some solutions. And one of the things that happens when you're trained to be a coach is they don't tell you how good you feel when something like this happens. So this is really a lot of where it comes from. It's a personal mission for me, let's call it, and that's where we are. So let's talk about this. Okay, so just before we get started, I'm not the doctor. I'm not a psychologist. We're going to be talking about some serious things. But if you're feeling delicate or you're feeling wobbly or you feel like you need some help, I'm not a doctor. Take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but definitely reach out and get some help. It's okay to do that. But what I want to try to do today is work through some things that we can all do together. Okay? So one of my best friends has this quote that entrepreneurs are one of humanity's greatest catalysts for change. And I think we all believe that. That's why we're doing this. We can all change the world. I want to help you change the world. We all want to do that, right? But it's not always that easy. And so maybe some of you know this quote. This comes from Ben Horowitz, from Andreessen Horowitz. Obviously one of the biggest VCs in the Valley, and this comes from his book, and this is really true. You all know this because we've all been there, right? You wake up in the middle of the night and like, oh my God, what am I doing? Am I going to make payroll? Am I going to raise this money? Am I going to expand? Is the thing going to work? Is it not going to work? My client just left. We're going through all those kinds of things, right? So this manifests itself in numbers, right? So founders are twice as more likely to suffer from depression, 6 times more likely to suffer from ADHD. We could run through all of these things, but we know this because this is what we're feeling, right? But also, twice as more likely to have suicidal thoughts and to have hospitalization for psychiatric issues, okay? We are vulnerable, and it's kind of like this dirty little secret of what we're doing. I'm not going to go read through all of these, but what I am going to say is this slide, because I think this is really important. Male founders are much more valuable, vulnerable. Yeah, wait, we're valuable. We are valuable. Of course we're valuable. We know that. But we're also much more vulnerable, okay? And men don't reach out and talk to one another. They don't say, hey, you know, I'm feeling wobbly here. I'm having problems, okay? So it's really important, guys, to be doing this, right? Generally, I love working with female founders. I'd say 80% of my coaching clients are female founders. But in this case, for guys, it's really important to stand up and say, hey, there's something going on here, right? All right, so let's get into it. There's a founder journey. It can be awesome, but it's stressful. There's a lot of pressure, right? We don't want to look bad or weak. And we're scared of rejection, right? We're all scared of that stuff. So you versus myth. When I first started doing this, this particular slide, these were all heroes. It's really kind of interesting that these were all heroes 2 years ago, right? Not so much heroes anymore. These were aspirational figures. I can't say that any of them are aspirational figures now. But we're all, at least when I put this slide together, we all wanted to emulate them, right? We all want to be somebody like this. I'm not so sure anymore, but this is what we all aspire to, right? But really, what goes on is this, right? This is us. This is what we're feeling, yeah? So you keep the emotions inside. There's a lot of pressure. It's not particularly healthy. It's not healthy for you or your families or your team or your investors, right? So really, that's what I want to talk about today. I call this the cave, you know, where we all have our own stories. Real briefly, what my story is that I want to thread through this is I had a company. I ran it for 7 years. I sold mobile games before there were app stores, and we had the biggest distributorship of mobile games in Asia, in Southeast Asia. I had 40 people working around the region, a lot of my own money into this, had a deal on the table, had a term sheet, a cash deal. I was going to end up kind of nicely at the end of it. All of a sudden, the cold winds start blowing. Economic downturn in 2008 hit, and the deal was pulled. I had 2 months left of money in the bank. I had 44 employees around the region. I had a marriage that was falling apart. I had 3 young kids, right? That was my moment. That was the moment where I was in the cave, and it was scary, man. It was like, I joke about it now that it should have killed me, you know, but it's not really that funny. Yeah, it was really like hard. So that's kind of my story. That's what got me here. But what can we do? What can we do now? And that's when we're in the cave and it's dark and scary. And I think all of you have been there or somewhere similar to that. So what I want to talk about today are some simple things that we can do ourselves for a little bit of self-care. Can I get some water again? I'm sorry. Okay. So anybody who knows me knows that I like to cook, okay? And if you cook, you know that in New Orleans, the holy trinity of cooking is made up. Everything that you cook in New Orleans, Cajun cooking, Creole cooking, is made with these 3 things: the onions, the celery, and the capsicum. But we're going to talk about a different holy trinity today. Okay, and these are the things that we all should know, and our parents have told us about, and we probably don't do very well: eating, sleeping, and exercising. I'd say most of us probably do 2 of the 3, okay, but most of us also don't do all of them, right? So this is really important self-care, but it's not what I'm going to talk about today, because your mom and dad already told you about this, right? What I have are 4 things that we should be paying attention to: talking, touching, helping, and celebrating. Okay? Easy things. We probably don't do them enough. Let's walk through them. So talking is obviously the easiest thing here, right? But it's also the hardest thing to do, right? Get your fears out into the open. Let them see the light of day. It really, really makes a difference. But it's hard to do that, especially if you're a guy, you know, especially if you have a team around you, or you have a family around you who's depending on you, right? It's hard to say, there's a problem here. I'm in trouble. I'm feeling like I need to talk about this. Yeah? So it's scary at first, and it's difficult to do, and maybe even depending on what culture you're from, it's just not done. You know, I do a lot of work in Southeast Asia, and culturally, it's not very accepted to open up and say, hey, I need help, okay? But maybe, you know, everybody here is from different parts of the world. Maybe it's a little easier in your culture. So who do you talk to? Friends, family, therapists, hey, you know, even get a coach, right? But speaking with other founders is really the easiest way to do this because other founders know what you're going through. And I think that in pretty much every city, every place that there is a startup ecosystem, there's a group of founders that get together and talk about these kinds of things. If you're not doing it, I really recommend it. Once a month, go for an hour or two. It's, you know, it's not AA, it's just talking to other founders and saying, hey, you know, I have similar issues. And it's good to hear it, right? It's good to hear it and be able to talk to other people about it, okay? And virtually anybody who's been through it, a multiple-time founder, actually knows that this is really important and will work with you, especially if you're a first-time founder. Find somebody else who's done it, talk to them, walk through these kinds of things, talk to them. Everybody has empathy, man. Everybody has empathy if they've been through it, right? Something that I do here, well, in Singapore, I have a monthly free session called Founder Circle. And it's done in Bangkok as well, and I'm starting to take it on the road, where we have it's closed-door mastermind session for founders where they can get together for 3 hours and simply talk about this kind of stuff, okay? I do it for free. It's great. It's great for me. I think it's great for the founders as well. But I find every time I learn new things, I hear new things, people get to talk about what they're really feeling and what they're doing. Sometimes there's tears, sometimes there's laughter, but it really helps. And that's what I'm doing to help make this happen. But you can reach out as well and talk to other founders. I highly recommend it. Okay, next up is touch. And again, this is something that we just don't talk about too much. There is a condition known as touch starvation. And again, if you're a guy, this happens, right? Where you don't have enough physical contact because we're in front of our computer, we're on the phone, we're always traveling, we're presenting, we're doing all those kinds of things with technology, but we're actually not touching other humans so much, okay? And as a result, your body produces a hormone called cortisol, which is not really good for you, okay? It brings up your heart rate, blood pressure, tension, your breathing goes up, and that then follows on to other kinds of things that can really harm you, all righty? So you don't want to be producing this cortisol. But luckily, there is another hormone called oxytocin. So I don't know how many of you people have heard about oxytocin, but it's kind of like the feel-good love hormone, okay? And this comes from touching other people, other things, hugging, kissing, cuddling, and even during sex. It's great. So obviously something we all want to participate in. But it's linked to lots of warm, fuzzy feelings, right? And it actually makes you feel better if you're touching other people, if you're getting massages, if you're, you know, hugging your loved ones or your kids or your dog or your whatever. So I really recommend this. And actually, if you think about it, how often you're touching somebody else during the day, it's not that much, right? Like out of all the hours that you're awake, maybe you're touching somebody 5 or 6 minutes during that time, right? So start doing it more. This is really easy to do. There are other people that you care about, other people that you live with and you love, so it's really important. Here's ways to do that. Family, friends, animals, get a pet, okay? Massage. Here's the best thing. Massage, everybody likes getting a massage, but the oxytocin produced giving a massage is the same as it is from receiving a massage. So actually, if you give a massage to somebody else, you can also feel good. It's a great little trick to know, okay? And then the other one, this is the thing that really amazed me. This is why we have cat cafes. I thought it was just like, you know, teenage Japanese adolescent girls who go and find like cute things and go get coffee and pet cats. But actually what it is people go and they pet the pets, and there are bunny ones, there are dog ones, you know, depending where you are in Asia, there are all these kinds of places you can go and just hang out with animals and touch them. And it produces oxytocin. So you can have a fix, 15 minutes, I know it's kind of naff, you know, I'm not sure any one of you guys is going to go into a cat cafe tomorrow and pet a cat to feel better. But it is an option, and they do exist, and that's why they exist. There's science behind this, right? Okay. There you go. Okay. But also, don't be a creep, right? Respect personal space and cultural norms here. You can't just go up and hug people, right? Because that doesn't work so well. And, different cultures, it doesn't work well at all. So be aware of that. Be sensitive to that. Especially, again, if you're a guy, you can't go hug everybody that you want to go hug necessarily. Yes. I know. Well, I'm hoping I do a good job so I can get a hug too, but we'll see. Okay. So beyond touch, we have help. And this is one that we're going to go way back. So I was a Boy Scout. I don't know how many of you were Boy Scouts. But if you were a Boy Scout growing up, the motto for being a Boy Scout is do a good turn daily, right? And it was illustrated to us as helping little old ladies cross the street. So if you can imagine a bunch of 15-year-old guys going, right, I'm going to be doing this. Adolescent boys are not into helping little old ladies across the street. But, what happens is, we get back to my story now. So eventually I sell my company after 18 months of struggle. Eventually I sell my company. I get divorced. I'm a single dad. I have, if you have a company, you become your company, right? Your mental construct of who you are. Ultimately, whether we want to or not, we become kind of that company, right? So the company's gone. I have 3 young kids. I don't know who I am. I don't know where I'm going. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? And so I had a friend call up one day and say, Paul, do you want to help some kids with learning disabilities learn how to swim? And so I went. I followed her, and I spent a Saturday morning helping kids swim. And it was the best thing for me. It was it got me completely out of my head. And I felt like, hey, great, I'm doing something for somebody else here. And so I started doing that more and more. And I started a program where I helped kids learn to read. I cook, so I cook for friends. You can help people move. There's all sorts of things you can do, right? Whatever that thing is that makes your heart beat faster. I really recommend it because what ends up happening here is that helping other people out gets you out of your own head. And maybe it's karma, maybe it's the universe, I don't know, or maybe it's just not thinking about yourself all the time, because we do all think about ourselves all the time, let's face it. Lots of studies show that participating in voluntary services really help. Okay? It helps you, it helps your mental health, it helps you not worry and obsess about yourself all the time. And raises self-esteem, makes you happier, it lowers depressive symptoms. There's real science behind doing this, right? So actually volunteering once a week, do an hour or two to somebody providing some help for somebody who needs help, but it's not you, right? It's really significant. So I recommend this to all the founders I work with. I recommend it to my kids. I'm recommending it to you. It's not so obvious, but going out there and helping some other people really helps you feel better and get better. And it really helped me. So the final one is celebrate and celebration. And this is something, I don't know how you all do this as founders, but I found I wasn't so good at this. And it really became clear to me during the lockdown when I was working with a founder who was in Scotland, who had a tech company. He had developers all over the world, like you guys probably do as well. And he found that in the midst of lockdown and COVID, that the company's spirit was going down. Everybody's on Zoom once a week or once a day or whatever. But he found that corporate esprit. The esprit de corps was just going away. It was gone. And he didn't know what to do about it. So I asked him, what do you do during these calls? And he said, well, we run through the agenda, and we do a to-do list, and we do all these things. I say, do you ever celebrate any wins, anything? No. Do you ever have fun? No. Do you play games? No. So we devised a way for him and his team they'd have pizza parties. So sometimes it would be deliver pizza. They had development teams in Taiwan. They had them in Vietnam. They had them in Lithuania. They had them in the Ukraine. They had them all over the world. But we did different kinds of things. So there would be parties at different times of day or night where they ordered pizza just to show up. Pizza on a some beer to show up. Maybe it was early in the morning for breakfast they had it, or maybe it was later on in the afternoon. We did that. They played games. They did like charades, just things that people could start to do together as a team where since they couldn't meet and they were all isolated and in their own homes, celebrating those kinds of things. So that was step one. Sorry, I kind of jumped ahead of my slides here. They're fun slides. So what I did was I recommended doing that, and also just whenever somebody had a win, whether they finished a project or they got through they got through a long scrum, or they closed a deal, to be able to celebrate it and have everybody participate in doing that, even remotely. And it made a really big difference for the team. I mean, people stopped quitting and they started like inviting their friends to come, and it became a much better company to work for, and I think everybody was a lot happier. So the fourth and final recommendation is don't forget to celebrate, right? Because we all focus on that bottom line all the time, or getting projects done on time, but sometimes we don't focus on our team and making sure that they're a team and they feel good about it and they feel good about themselves. Or, in this instance, some of the other options are, there's dopamine, sorry. There's also science behind this, but we're not going to go into that because I'm aware of the time here. But you don't want to repeat this bad behavior, right? So acknowledge your wins, keep a journal, host a summit, hosting a summit. That's a great idea, to celebrate those wins. We all get to participate in it. We feel better about ourselves. Obviously, Lars feels pretty good about himself, I would suspect, after such a successful summit here. But I think for sure, we need to remember to do this, and not only for yourself, but for your team as well. Okay, so that's kind of the four things, right? They're easy to do. You don't need prescriptions. You don't need to go on the road. You don't need to spend a lot of money. But talking to different people to help yourself, to help your teams, to help your family, making sure that you get that oxytocin dose, whether it's a cat cafe or hugging your spouse or your kids or your dog, right? Helping other people out when you get a chance, making sure that you spend some time not thinking about yourself, right? I mean, we're all really important, but don't think about yourself all the time. And then last but not least, be able to celebrate and spend some time celebrating your wins with your team, with your family. This is life, right? It's not all work. And it's not all deadlines. And it's not all raising money, although sometimes we think it is. So that's it. Kind of short and sweet here. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. There you go. So thank you. Thanks for the time. Oh, all right. Okay, a little oxytocin. Yes. Thanks.
Because usually, as a working in tech, have more than most of my people in the office men. And sometimes it will be weird to go to one of your engineers like, can I relax? It's like sexual harassment. But any questions for Paul?
It's harder doing the other thing too. I mean, if you're a guy, you can't go just grow up, run up and like.
It's like genuine, like I just want to feel loved.
Yeah, exactly. But, it's important. Any questions I can answer? We have a little bit of time left. Yeah. Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. I like that. Oh wait, there's one. Yes. Right, it's the secret message. It was 5 things, but then I realized the time was kind of short, so I made it down into 4.
So what is the 5 then?
Oh, I can't tell you that. You got to invite me back. Oh man, I fell afoul there. I was in Singapore once many years ago, and somebody gave a talk on the 7 steps of highly effective people, and he only had time to get through 3 of them. And I always laughed at that, but now I'm doing the same thing. So the 5th one actually has to do with sleep, okay? Because that you can stay up or get up in the middle of the night and worry, right? And ponder and walk around and eat and do all those bad things for you. So what I found is I have a way of recording what's in my head. Okay, some people write it down. I use an app called Otter. There's lots of apps that do this, that do transcription. So I just talk into my phone. I say, ba 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 ba. This sucks. This is horrible. This is making me feel bad. I'm worried about this, and just get it out of your head, right? And I'd say 9 times out of 10, that's it. I'm able to go back to sleep, right? So that's my 5th thing, is just being able to get better sleep. And everybody has their own tricks for doing it, whether it's exercise or having a routine. I don't have a routine. I'm kind of all over the map that way. But I know that when I get up in the middle of the night and I'm stressing out and I have that, get it out. And I find that talking works for me. So this is a free app. Otter is a free app, but everybody has a free app now that does this. So I recommend really doing that, because it just wipes the screen, whoosh, and it really helps. Yeah, good question. Sometimes I do. In this case, Otter transcribes it so I can read it, right? And I have kind of a journal that I keep, so it goes into the journal. And as much as any of us read our journal again, I do. So sometimes I do, or sometimes it's a year later, or sometimes it's in December. But that's how it works. But I find that having it typed out really makes a difference, because I can refer to it. And often you look at something that was bothering you 6 months ago, and you look at it today and you're like, geez, I'm so past that. I'm so over that. Or, oh my God, I'm still worrying about that same thing, right? So it's helpful that way. But just getting it out of your head so you can go back to sleep is really key.
Yeah, thanks for explaining. It's very useful. Because also I was a speaker today and not sure how much or if any sleep I got. Because all night in my head was like, is the presentation gonna be good? Are the people gonna like it? Are they maybe I'm not good enough? All that shit, and I didn't really know how to cope with this. So that's a really useful tip. Thank you.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Good.
I'll give you a hug too, Thomas.
Yes.
You mentioned using Otter, right? But
Yeah.
Another questions over there I saw?
Joke aside, you just killed all the psychologists in the whole world with this idea.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
You just killed all the psychiatrists in the whole world with this idea. You solved a lot of problems.
you solved a lot of problems.
Oh, good. Good.
Is part of the catharsis just admitting to yourself that you have this thing, right? I mean, Thomas just mentioned this. He's like, when I went to bed at 3 o'clock last night, not because I was doing anything except just like worrying about shit.
Yeah.
Right?
And you know what we
I
all
was
do
up
too.
all night preparing for shit. Yeah. So you're right. Like out of those 3 things, eat, sleep, whatever it is. I think there's part of the idea is just telling yourself that it's going to be good.
Yeah.
The slide with the multipliers was a revelation for me 2 years ago when I found out I'm not stupid, I have ADHD. Things are like straightforward, like just going down a list. I found really stupid that I have a sticky note in my bathroom that has a checklist on it so I don't forget to floss or put wax in my hair, because I'm really bad at these simple operational things. But put me in an international merger and I can work with that.
There you go. There
And
you go.
yeah, so I felt stupid, and after realizing that, just by putting it out there, I'm like, I'm not an idiot.
Yeah.
Maybe I am, but not this time.
I have a coaching client who just she was discovered to be on kind of on the autism spectrum, and for a while she was like really horrified. Something's terribly wrong with me, and like I can't tell anybody. Yeah. But then she realized, hey, wait a minute, now I understand what's going on here, and I can take these steps like you did to be able to address what I thought was like some deep secret problem, but now I have a strategy for dealing with it, and I can do anything, right? So it really opened her up to be able to do that. So good. I'm glad that worked for you too.